fine. I prepared all the slides in English, and I anyway would have used a lot of English phrases, English terms during the Hungarian presentation. So thank you so much. Very happy to be here and walk you through how we in GE Healthcare have implemented Salesforce.com. Before I go to the agenda and share with you what I'm going to talk about, let me also briefly talk about my background and how I met Salesforce and how I have been working with Salesforce. So my name is József Mátyási, and I started my career in 2006. In the first 4 years, I worked for strategic management consultancy. First 2 years in a Warsaw-based company, so I lived for quite some time in Poland. And then since then, I have been practically based in Budapest, and first in AT Kearney in another management consultancy, then 2 years in Siemens, so one of our great competitors of GE. And then 8 years ago, I moved to GE Healthcare, and since then I've been both covering commercial excellence and sales excellence, first in a regional role, covering all Eastern Europe. And for the past 3 years, it has been entire Europe. And this is what I'd like to walk you through. So on the agenda, so first of all, I'd like to put things into perspective. So make sure you know what we do in GE Healthcare. So what are the products we sell? Is the script visible over there, or should we enlarge it a bit? Okay. So scoping first, make sure you see and also have the big picture on what we do in GE Healthcare, what product services we provide to our customers. Then I also would like to flesh out a bit the numbers that we deliver to our shareholders and hopefully also to the greater good of mankind. And last but not least, in the first scoping part, I also like to cover the sales process. So how we see what we do when we do sales, because that's practically the baseline for understanding how a customer relationship management tool like Salesforce should be helping us, should be supporting us. In the next step, I'd like to move to the part, which is our user story or use case here. And when I was wondering about how to approach this topic, because I am very much in this, so how can I take, like several steps backwards and look at it from outside, I realized that the best is to first capture and embrace what was the existing business problem, business case that we wanted to address, how we see it today. So that's another topic I'd like to talk about. And then later on, I'd like to also highlight what were the main challenges that we have faced and we have addressed during the past couple of years. We actually started the Salesforce implementation 6.5 years ago, so in the beginning of 2013. So it's been quite a journey, and then we have come across several challenges and key learnings. And last but not least, I'd like to also talk about where we are today, what are the outcomes, what are the benefits, and I also would like to share with you 2 examples on how we have changed our processes, especially the sales-specific processes, and what does that mean from a tool perspective. So, GE Healthcare. Before we go into that slide and I walk you through what businesses we have, please raise your hand if you have ever met or ever seen any GE Healthcare products. Okay. Yeah, so I would say it's 5 to 10% of the audience. That's normal because GE Healthcare is usually selling products to healthcare institutions, to private and public diagnostic and imaging centers. So our product portfolio has actually 2 parts. One is the equipment business and the related services. That's what we call as healthcare systems. And then the other part is the pharma business. And I'm not going to talk about today about the pharma business out of 2 reasons. One reason is that one business is currently being sold to Danaher, and the other business is something where we don't really have those sales characteristics that we have in the equipment business. So what I'm going to cover today is the 3 equipment businesses: imaging, ultrasound, and life care solutions, and of course the related services business, which is covering all of these 3 equipment businesses. In the first place, I'd like to introduce the imaging business. This business is actually covering the big machines. Big machines are those that do a lot of diagnostic imaging scans, be those based on X-ray technology, like traditional X-ray systems, bone densitometry, digital mammography, or I would say more advanced computed tomography, so CT systems. We also have a large variety of MR scanners. And last but not least, I think it's a bit of exception in the imaging business. We also have surgery equipment. I'm not sure how much this red dot is visible over there. And surgery is not something which would be directly linked to the diagnostic imaging, which is more like non-operating patient care, but surgery is definitely happening in the operating room. So that's also part of the imaging business. The reason is that these are also very specialized CT scanners that are used during operations. The next one, that's the ultrasound business. The ultrasound business is actually covering all the ultrasound-based technology. In some of our competitors' case, this is also part of what they call as the imaging business, which makes sense. In our case, this is due to some historical reasons, some legacy. It's a separate business. It's sometimes called as a republic. That's why it's also added here separately. And by the way, there is also a good reason, is that this business contributes roughly to 1/3 of our sales revenues. Imaging is covering roughly 40-45%, or sometimes 50%, depending on the geography where you are. And Lifecare Solutions is covering roughly 10-15%, and the rest is the services business. The only one that I haven't talked about is the Lifecare Solutions. This is actually the collection of all the businesses or all the segments where we are selling to public and private hospitals, in the intensive care, also in the operating room, and also in the perinatal, so maternal and infant care. So that's our third business. And this third business is actually a selection or a group of businesses itself. The reason why I really wanted to show this in this granularity is because we have very different type of sales channels, very different groups of customers, and also a large variety of products that we sell. So that's our product portfolio. And then a bit about the numbers. So here I collected, I was actually a bit challenged here because I needed to bring here numbers that are not only visible internally, but are only visible externally, to make sure I'm not exposing something that would be uncompliant. So our numbers, GE Healthcare globally makes almost $20 billion. That's our sales revenue. And we also have a very good trend. If I look at our numbers from 2015, 2016, there was a very positive trend. Similarly, Europe is also growing with the same rate or even higher. Europe itself, so Europe GE Healthcare in particular, represents 21% of the total GE Healthcare revenue. So that means we are the second biggest global region after US and Canada. And I was also actually a bit surprised. I was not aware of this number. So it seems that within the Europe GE revenues, so the non-healthcare and healthcare revenues, our GE Healthcare represents 17%. So there seems to be also businesses that are larger here. And I think one of the reasons is the Alstom business. I also wanted to put here some numbers on what we do in Salesforce. So how many users we have in Salesforce? We have in total in Europe 14,000 employees. Out of these 14,000, we have 3,000 who are in Salesforce. And out of the 3,000, we have 1,200 who are sales users who are facing customers on a daily basis. And they are actually our customer-facing team. So that's what we are talking about when we look at our sales process and also our sales organization. And there is actually I would say a huge proportion of users who are non-sales but are on Salesforce in our org. And the reason is that, and this is actually going to be visible here in this next slide, is that whenever we do sales, besides the people who are directly facing the customers, we have a lot of other functions, especially back office functions or very specialized functions who interact with this process and contribute to this process. When I prepared this overview, I realized that there is no easy way, or if I wanted to take the easy way to share and represent our sales process, that would have been oversimplifying it, really oversimplifying. So if I really wanted to pick the two major pieces, I can actually say that, yeah, we have a big focus or a big impact of the sales team. I put here marketing and sales because hopefully we'll have more and more involvement from the marketing teams. And we have, as a result of the deliveries and installations, the services team who is also taking care of our equipment. What does that mean? So how do we work? So what is our industry like? I mean, I have mentioned to you which are the types of equipment or which are the groups of equipment modalities. So to say that we sell. So how do we sell? So what do we do? Our business is clearly not a commodity business. And if I wanted to take an analogy from our everyday life, I could say that our business is very similar to the car industry, to the way how we as end customers of the car manufacturers buy cars and how they sell it to them, with the big difference that car sales is mostly indirect, so distributor driven. In our case, we are also direct and indirect. But the point here is that in this analogy, we create a so-called install base when we deliver, when we sell an equipment to a site, and that's going to stay there. Like if you buy a car, you normally would like to use it for long periods of time because you have a clear need of mobility. In this case, our customers have a clear need to do diagnostic imaging, be that based on ultrasound or X-ray technology, or of course do intensive care, just to give an example. And here is the thing. So once you install that equipment, there comes the next part, which is the service cycle. And also, one characteristic of our industry is that it's not only that you do a sale one time and then you do the services, but we have a lot of focus on replacing our IB. And maybe that's something that's not necessarily the same analogy in the car industry. And what I also would like to highlight is that if I wanted to compare it to the car industry, there is one important characteristic that is not the case. So if you buy a car, of course, you do a configuration, you as a potential buyer. But it's really not rocket science. So if you know how cars work, you can really select which type of additional features you want to have in a car. Here in this case, we have a lot more complexity when it comes to our products. And also, that means that we really do not have very similar products. Almost all of our products, like the high-quality MR systems, each and every of them are unique products. That means that in this cycle, we need to make sure that we make manufacturing aware of all the needs on time. And also, we do make sure that they can produce that and deliver that on time. Otherwise, we're not going to meet our customer expectations. And if they created something that's not going to fit our customers' needs, then it's going to sit in the warehouse. A lot of money is going to just burn in obsolescence sitting in that machine. And that's something where we are practically losing money and we are killing our cash. So that's our sales cycle. And what I also wanted to put here is the forecasting piece, because that's key here, not only for manufacturing, but also for our management and sales executives to make sure that they clearly see and understand what's in the funnel, what's going to be our orders intake, and what's going to be our sales numbers, because that's what our shareholders expect from us to deliver to them and keep them up to date. So that was actually the first part of my presentation, and now I'd like to move to the Salesforce implementation piece. But before I do that, any questions or any comments or any thoughts that you would like to ask or share? Yes, please. That's a very good question. So although we have a services organization, that's something I didn't explicitly mention. So our services team is actually making sure we sell the contracts and we also deliver the spare parts. So this is also a sales activity, and there is a rationale to also, or there would have been a rationale to also introduce the services cloud. But what we did, we actually customized it for the services teams. I mean, the sales cloud was customized for the services team's needs. It's a very strange animal, but it's alive and it works so far, I can tell you. Good. So let me explain the slide. Just listen to me, please. So here, this is the business case story. So this is the way how I thought it's the best to summarize this and present this to you. So 6.5 years ago, initially back in 2013, we asked ourselves the question, okay, so we want to implement a CRM system. We were also considering what are the, of course, alternatives, what could be the best solution, and then which approach to take, which approach to make. But before we would do that, in that case, the main challenge that we had was that we wanted to introduce this CRM system because we didn't have any system that could have covered that large complexity of businesses that I shared with you. We had some sporadic local CRM solutions here and there. Maybe one region was using Zebel, another one was Sales Workbench, but that was not all the businesses, just one or maybe two businesses, and they were not using the same thing, so different customizations existed even in the same tool. So one clear need was that, yes, let's have one common CRM tool across the globe for all these businesses, for the 3 equipment businesses and for the services team. The other one was that at that time, and I think it was not only GE Healthcare, but probably also other companies. I mean, I saw Siemens as well, and I also saw there the functional silos at that time, and also in GE Healthcare at that time. We had a lot of functional silos, meaning that each function, like finance, sales, marketing, was living in their own universe. And although we shared the same we shared a lot of same things together, but we had different solutions, different approaches, different tools for that. That was something that was really like not only frustrating that we are doubling things, but it was really like a very heavy process, very resource consuming, manpower consuming process. And that was something that we needed to address. So we looked at the alternatives. There were actually 2 major questions. So do we want this common CRM system to come only as a CRM system? So do we only want to cover practically the sales cloud-based opportunity management, or do we also want to bring in a configurator pricing quoting, so CPQ solution? We had or similar to the CRM systems, we also had sporadic CPQ solutions here and there. At that time, the decision was that no, we are only going to go for the CRM-only solution. The good news is that we decided it in a way that we want to make sure that those tools used by the other functions are going to be linked to this, so there are going to be interfaces. And this was the critical piece. This was the critical element, because although it took quite some time in the beginning, at least 1.5 years, to see the tangible benefits of this deployment. But that was the thing that really convinced the management and really increased the adoption from the sales management side and from the company executive side. And they were actually, those managers, those executives who were not so much in favor of implementation in the beginning, they were coming back with requests for new things later on, which was great. This is what we managed to do. And what we actually started with is minimal impact on the processes. This was something which we also learned as we were reflecting back on what is our business problem, that, if we introduce a tool, we also customize it for our own needs, that is sort of fine. But we are so complicated as a business, as a healthcare business, even just talking about the equipment businesses, that it's simply not enough to customize. We also need to standardize, not necessarily all the processes, but at least key processes like sales forecasting and revenue and funnel estimation, because that's the way how we can really keep the balance between the tool and the process. And very recently, if we look at the same logic, if we look at the same thought process, what is our business problem? What are our alternatives that we have here to select from, and what is the preferred one and where we are heading to? I can tell you that thanks to this interface logic, we have a very big management support on the tool. But in fact, this is, or recently we realized that this is not necessarily a full CRM tool for our sales reps, but this is a management reporting tool. So the management found a lot of good things in it, but the average field sales teams, although we really minimized what they need to put into that, they just felt that now they need to put that thing into a different tool, but they are really in the need to get as much as possible out of the tool. And this is currently our focus, to move ahead and accelerate these processes. And as we are here in a relatively customized system and with relatively customized processes as well, customized processes meaning that we had to have the businesses change the way how they do things, how they approach things in different ways. So that's something which is a very sensitive thing, so to say, politically, and we need to keep the balance here. So let me also summarize what key challenges we had and what learnings we had as a result. So first of all, we learned that although we have a really nice, very powerful CRM system called Salesforce.com, and we can even also ask external consultants to look at our processes, change those processes. What is not going to change is our customers, and that's a good thing, because we really want our customers to be first. But that's the thing. If you start implementing a CRM tool, never ever forget that you have to put the customers first. Otherwise, that's going to be a large CRM tool implementation. The other thing is that we didn't believe in the beginning that those online or offline legacy systems, be that Zbel or any other Excel-based macro-heavy tools, will be that significant to tackle. But that was exactly the case. So we had a hard time to find the argument sometimes why those tools should be decommissioned and why Salesforce or a specific custom object should cover those. And that is something which we learned on the go as we took this iterative approach, as I shared with you. So we built first the minimum viable product. Then following that, if we needed to fail, we really admitted it immediately to make sure we can reflect back on this as soon as possible. And yeah, I mean, that also meant that we fine-tuned our objectives on a regular basis. Last but not least, we also use this tool, as I mentioned, for management reporting. And this is a very good tool, especially if we add to the Sales Cloud also Einstein Analytics as the BI tool. One thing that we learned is that we can have a very nice and powerful tool, but if we don't standardize the data globally, this is very critical that we need to do that globally, that's not going to do anything else but put our existing Excel tools on an online platform that are going to be standalone isolated tools sitting on the same platform. And to avoid this, one key thing that we had to really fix in the beginning is to customize the data. One very simple example: UK, United Kingdom as a country, can appear in 4 different ways in various data sets. So that's what a team who was taking care of data governance needed to do 3 years ago to make sure we are really capable for reporting. And if I go back to the slide where I shared with you how many products, modalities, and business segments we have and what particular things we have it there, yeah, that was also, I mean, not geography was, of course, the main challenge, but the product hierarchy and the product modeling that we needed to really standardize and make sure that the idea was that we didn't want everyone to use that, but we wanted everyone to have a reference to that so that they can also learn the data and understand and read that data when it comes to product modeling. And let me also move to the last part, which is where we are today. So what's the outcome and what benefits it has brought to us? So it's a good thing that out of these, so as a result of this journey that we have come through, we do have currently a common CRM system, Salesforce, based on the Sales Cloud, so including also the services business. And more, we have the CPQ tool used globally. So Aptus is our common configurator, pricing, and quoting tool for all the businesses, for all the equipment businesses, and for the services team. And this also really helped to break down those silos. So some things that were not visible became immediately visible once these were on the tool, not only for the management, but also for the sales reps. They now today have really like 360-degree account visibility, and they also have a very good understanding on their own market. So even an account manager who is covering, let's say, Ile-de-France in France, or a couple of departments in France, can really see her or his own market, her own funnel. And this is possible because this whole thing is at the level of the opportunity granularity, and we can really build the scene market from there. And of course, later, once we have the real market data, because another industry specific is that we have a nice organization in Europe called COSIR, who is actually sending you back after a closed financial quarter your market data. We can also see that and have that. Yeah, last but not least, we digitize the forecasting mechanisms that we have, so we don't really use Excel anymore. The official global truth is coming from Salesforce, and this also helped us save a lot of manual work. A lot of finance analysts who really had this, I would say, no-brainer type of thing to extract data from here, do some data crunching, data conversion, and then end up with something. That sort of thing is over. And also I would say the finance magic thing is also over when you stretch and hedge the data. So that's a good thing. And I also wanted to bring here two examples. One is on this slide and the other one is on the other slide, because that was a larger thing to add on the slide. So what I like to share with you here is that when I mentioned that we changed the way how we do the sales estimation and sales forecasting process, it didn't only mean that we use the tool now for this purpose. We actually customize the tool in a way that if you have an opportunity that is the main object that the sales teams work with, we really wanted to make sure that in that object, the number of fields that the sales reps, so those who really own those opportunities, the number of fields that they need to interact with and own, and they are accountable for that, is really like optimal. And today, in an opportunity, it's roughly 5 to 8 fields, depending, of course, on the business, that the opportunity owners need to fill in and keep maintained. The good thing is that roughly 4 to 5 out of these is just something that they enter in the beginning. And then on a regular basis, if I'm a sales rep in imaging business, I have, I would say, an average 15 opportunities in a quarter that I need to follow up on and take care of, or maybe 20. But that means every week I need to make updates 2 or 3 times on those 2-3 fields in these 20 opportunities. It's really like and of course we have a very special online thing inside Salesforce that they can use to make even mass updates on those opportunities or quickly see through their own funnel. That is what we entered, what we introduced, and we also changed the process. So based on the opportunities that the sales reps have, on top of those fields, we also have additional fields that are owned by their managers, who are also accountable for making sure that that is their own fields, whether they are calling that opportunity as part of their estimate or not, or just simply part of the funnel. That's also their responsibility. And this was not like that before, so we didn't have this double level of opportunity commitment or opportunity forecasting. And last but not least, we also have the zone managers and the general managers who are also using this tool because they see that if they want to have the complete estimate, they can even drill down to the opportunity level and can have their estimate from this tool. So I think this is one of the great examples on how we use the tool and how we manage to bring the process and the tool together. And the other one is, where I'm very proud of this, is Ancient Analytics, because we started to use this 4 years ago. It's actually the BI part. And for some time, I also realized after some conversations with people that Einstein, it's only in GE Healthcare that we refer to Einstein as the Einstein analytics tool. So that's what we are using. We are not really using the other Einstein solutions, but this is very good for us because what we had before, all those, yes, please. Exactly, yeah. It used to be called as Wave Analytics, yeah. And that's what we really started to use. So we had a project leader who was global in his scope, but he was actually from Europe. And then most probably that's the reason, because he had a lot of codes that was flexible for him for Europe. We actually really started to use it in Europe. So 4 years ago, we saw the great benefits of that. At that time, the only big thing that it could provide to us was that it was doing a lot of it was providing much more flexibility in terms of reporting and dashboards than what the traditional or good old Salesforce dashboards can do. Of course, that was a very big thing for us because we were maintaining at that time 80 plus dashboards just for Europe specifically in Salesforce for the same purpose. Here, it took 2 dashboards because we had such a big flexibility on filtering and selection binding and all the stuff behind that. The next big leap was actually coming when we also had the chance to pull in via automated data flows the other systems data, and we could connect this. Because opportunity management could, of course, provide us the orders and the sales numbers, but to connect it to the market numbers, connect it to the orders operations numbers, and also to the real finance actuals, orders and sales actuals, that was something that before was possible only offline and Excel. And here we could do that. And this is not only actually happening in Europe after some time, but we also expanded it globally. And since the beginning of the last year, in GE Healthcare, Salesforce is the official tool for orders data. So any orders number that we call has to come from Salesforce. So no region is allowed anymore for almost 2 years now to provide data on Excel. And that means that they are also pushed to go down to the opportunity level and make sure that the data is built up by the total amount of opportunities that you have in the system. So that meant, as I mentioned before, a lot of manual work that was saved. So that was a great thing, and those people could do finally something that was more value-adding and much better, of course, and much more motivating for them. This is something which is not only, I would say, possible, but this is highly reliable. We have some alternatives, let's say Spotfire and other tools where we might have some data refresh complications. Here, these automated data flows, although from time to time there are some hiccups, so to say, this works. And this is online, so we don't need to, you can also check it from any mobile devices, so you don't need to really download it anywhere. You can really check it on the web. And last but not least, we finally had a single source of truth. So all the thing that we had before in terms of how people present the numbers, what they understand under this business and that business is over. We really have a clear global product modeling. Just to give an example, what imaging means in Europe can mean that one of the Lifecare Solutions businesses is part of that, while in other global regions, that business can be part of another one. Or surgery in the United States is not part of the imaging business because that's such a large business that it's a standalone business, just to give an example. So all these things which are really valid and there is a clear need for those businesses to be handled separately can be handled this tool easily. Of course, it took an initial effort in the beginning, but by the time we had the investment completed, it really returned. Yes. We have one org for healthcare systems, core imaging region business, so this pharma business, and that also includes the enterprise digital solutions business. So practically it's one org. And we have also this biopharma business that is currently being sold. I was never involved in their Salesforce businesses, and they have a different org. And that's actually a good thing because now it's easier for them to be carved out and move into a separate company.
Can you give us a
Yeah, so in Europe, so I have a team of 3 people, but we are mostly taking care of I would say, user request management, and also making sure that whatever we have from commercial excellence as strategic initiatives is in line with the tool. So we align to that. What we are doing in terms of support is practically making sure that we understand what that type of thing that is coming in from the users, where that belongs to. So we have actually, from enhancement perspective, a global, we call that SFDC IT team, who are within the GE Healthcare organization. Most of these people are in the Indian subcontinent. And we have actually, I think, a very good operating rhythm with them. From time to time, it's fluctuating, but I can tell you that we had a lot of we had a very steep learning curve, both on our side, on the end user side, or so to say the business side, and also on their side. So we have really like an in-house IT team who is doing a lot of coding and development. We also have very strict rules in terms of who can have admin rights, and that's also something which is also owned by this global team. And there is a very clear reason for that, because if in this complex organization you give admin rights to a lot of users, even with the best intentions, you will screw up the tool after a month or 2 months, because there is so much customization and there's such a high level of interdependency in several fields and in validation rules, whatever, that it's simply impossible to delegate it below the global level. So it has to be at the global level. Yes, please. Yeah. Okay, so I can tell you how we do that, and I'm not sure how much is the standard and how much is our customization or on top of that. So what we do is that inside the opportunities, we of course have the orders and sales forecast category fields. These are 2 of those 5 to 8 fields that the sales reps, so the opportunity owners, have the responsibility to add and update. So it's practically, it's firstly their call whether they call as something as part of their estimate or not. Something which is booked or won or committed with risk is part of our estimate. That's very simple. Anything beyond that, so upside high, open item inside a funnel is the funnel or part of the market. And when it comes to the estimation, we of course also take into consideration the order date and the sales date. So there's actually 2 date fields, 2 forecast fields, plus there is another dimension of the forecast fields, because the management here, from the sales managers and upwards, they do have a so-called manager order forecast category and manager sales forecast category fields. And what we consider as orders estimate and sales estimate is only based on these fields, because it's the manager's number, it's the manager's responsibility to call the numbers. And it's also their responsibility to make the right judgments, whether they see an opportunity as a potential order or a strong order or sales for a given quarter or not. If they want to sort of balance it, they can of course put several opportunities at risk, plus they can also keep, I would say, a reserve in the upside category. That's what is normally happening, because we of course have in a big number of the cases public tenders where it's, like it can be, it can slip from one quarter to the next quarter. Usually it stops at the end of the year, because that's when budget cycles end for the public customers. But from Q1 to Q2, Q2 to Q3, Q3 to Q4, it's very easily slipping. So it's their responsibility, their judgment, and also deep knowledge of their teams, how they work and what they call as a number. Yeah, and we also have a special animal, a so-called plug-in opportunity, which is a different opportunity record type that we initially had. It's currently being phased out, which is mostly owned by the zone managers and general managers. This is a plug. If you don't have that amount inside the opportunity funnel, because it's called, sometimes we call it ultra flow business. In Lifecare Solutions, we have a part of the business that is selling accessories, cables, very simple monitors. And one such item is roughly on average 100, 200 euros. It's impossible to enter that as opportunities in Salesforce. So we usually have that entered as a plug opportunity as a total amount, and that's being adjusted across the quarter. Yeah, please. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So if I think of, or if I think about Aptus as our CPQ solution, then this is sitting, most of these things are in Aptus. So, and that's a Salesforce platform. So to answer the question in brief, yes, we have it in Salesforce. But that's something which needs to be maintained. So price lists, that is something that is relatively complex for Europe, because we have only in Eastern Europe 19 countries. So you need to have different price lists for the various countries and different discount levels defined, because that's a different market nature and you need to address that. Plus, we also have the product hierarchy available in Salesforce. The good thing is that that's global. So that has to be defined globally for each and every business. However, within the businesses, we have big differences. One example, Lifecare Solutions, again, as a business, has usually more line items in a relatively simple respiratory machine than the imaging business has in an MR machine. Just because they define that this button on the keyboard should be a capital, I don't know, A or Enter or backspace. They don't say it should be a Hungarian keyboard or a German. They really go down to that level of granularity. And yeah, so that's one of the things that is global, and that takes some time to really standardize that. And the way how manufacturing is linked to that, of course, manufacturing needs to know which cable is where, so they need to have a much more higher level of granularity when we define the product. It's not the same database, of course, but there is a very clear mapping and reference between the two. So we know exactly that if we have a configured MR system, what does that mean from manufacturing's point of view? So what exact spare parts and cables and down to the smallest chip, what they really need to enter there. Yes, please. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. If you buy, yeah. Mhm. So if by product hierarchy you mean the single product, then the No, that's not enough. So what we do is that they, of course, know the products because, I mean, although we don't really have the same products, they are unique in the configuration, but the products themselves, they really have a product name and a label. So we really have like specific products. So what they do when they raise an opportunity, they, of course, enter those 5-8 fields. And then in the next phase, they enter the opportunity products. And these products, immediately once they are ready to the opportunities, they have a unit price and a quantity, and a product of these is actually giving the product amount. And all of these products really have the product tier 1, 2, 3 levels of the product hierarchy that eventually decides where this opportunity rolls up to. And this is also good because at this stage we have an optimized granularity, because if you add into an opportunity, both an MR system, a CT, and a surgery system, we have a limitation that in each opportunity you can only have one business's products, but those can really be from various modalities within that business. So if you add there an MR, a CT, and a surgery, and the MR is 50% of the total price, is CT 35%, and 15% is for the surgery system. If you of course, if you pull it into different reports, these numbers are going to roll up into the various modalities. Later on, when the configuration is done, that's of course below the product level. So they need to go down to a lower granularity. I would say stability or good performance is roughly about 150 line items. So that's what we are really pushing the global product teams to achieve, to standardize these sometimes very detailed product line items up to 150, so that you can really configure that within 150 line items. Time is up, so thank you so much for your questions and for your attendance. And if any further questions, I'm happy to answer later after the next session.